Welcome back to Fullerton College's Print 145 Variable Data Imaging. This is your instructor, Ben Hewitt. We are now in part 2 of my basic entry-level data entry into XMPie and InDesign using CSVs. Last time we took a look at the spreadsheet and what it looked like, and also how the the row of header columns, all those column headers, said it like too many times now, but all the column headers become the variable data. They call them content objects. They become content objects in XMPie. And those content objects, when double clicked, whoops, space in there, when double clicked, they put in things. Actually, you know what? That should be in a new line, Middlesex, comma, state, zip. You don't always need to use all the data given. Depends on the project. So this shows up a couple things for us we'd have to work with to fix in here. We're not going to do all of that in this video because the first project for you is really just how are you going to, you're going to learn how to integrate at all and cycle through to see the different things. You can, of course, type a number into that box where you're using what I love to call the elevator buttons and take you whichever one you want. And I should also mention that if you click in here and you use your keyboard arrows, you can just, whoops, sorry, I clicked on something else because I was being silly there. Use your keyboard arrows. You can just cycle through this way. You can even hold it down and really test your computer's ability to pull data quickly. Which, if you're going to play around like that, do that now when we're just using text. When you start using variable image, that's really going to tax your processor on your computer to try and keep up with you on this stuff. Now, I should show you a few things about the formatting options and things that'll happen. Like I said last time, all the normal formatting that you could do, I just centered my type, like changing type, changing size of type, changing spacing, kerning, tracking. If you want to make it all caps or not, you can do that here. We can space this out like crazy, which you should never do on an address unless you're doing it as a artistic thing that only humans are going to look at, because the postal software guaranteed are not going to be able to read this, and they're going to charge you more money because of that. So don't do that, but you can, and it will still stay there as we do all this stuff. Any normal text differences that you apply to the text frame apply to the data. The data is simply filling out the text frame. It's like you're using placeholder text. It's just smart, exacting, precise placeholder text, 0. There we go. So anyways, let's take a look at some of the problems you might have. I'm going to left align for right now. And this is something to take a look at. Sometimes you may just not quite fit where you want to fit. I'll even zoom in so you can see this. Overset text is a real problem. When you're typesetting and you have all the information in front of you that you're going to typeset, it's fairly straightforward to make sure that your text frames are big enough and your text itself is small enough to fit inside. Mistakes can still be made when you have all information in front of you, but when you're working with variable data, you're not working with information that you know, you're working with information that you kind of understand what type of information it is, but you don't know everybody's addresses, you don't know everybody's names in a 1,000, 10,000, 20,000 person mailing list. So you need to set up a way that you can make sure that the computer knows how to handle these situations. So, this is my first time that I give you this explanation, but don't expect this to be the last time I use this wonderful lunch analogy. So let's all pretend that it's not COVID for a minute, because otherwise this, well, I guess it could still sort of work. But if you're hanging out with friends and someone says, hey, I'll go get us lunch. Okay, cool. So you send friend A off, and they're going to go to the sandwich shop that they like, that they know of, and they're going to buy everybody sandwiches, and you all give them your money, and they're going to go do this. This is also not just pre-COVID, but it's kind of pre-Venmo. This is a situation where you're giving them cash and just sending them off. But anyways, if you don't know the menu of the restaurant that your friend is going to go buy food at, even if it's just a sandwich shop, well, you're going to give them a set of conditional instructions, aren't you? You're not going to say, great, just get me the turkey, because you know they have turkey. But what if you don't know they have turkey? Then you start giving them a list of priorities and you say, well, if they have turkey, I would like turkey. I'd prefer it on wheat if they have it, but if not, white bread's just fine. Oh, wait, do they have that Italian bread with the herbs? I know that's only Subway, but does this other place have that too? Because I like the herb breads. Anytime they like drop the bread in a pile of seeds, it's really tasty. Do that. But if they don't have that, do it this other way. Also, if I'm going to get the bread with the herbs, I don't want mustard. It doesn't work. That should be an oil and vinegar sandwich. But if it's the wheat bread, please give me the spicy brown or the honey mustard sauce on it. If you guys are all hungry now, yeah, I did my job. I'm getting hungry, can you tell? But anyways, you're giving your friends who's going to go to the sandwich shop for you a series of instructions based off of what might they encounter when they get to the shop. Because you don't know, you just know that there are certain types of things that exist in sandwich shops, but you're not for sure what the chef's special is at this particular place. So that's the kind of thinking you need to have when you approach variable data. It's a lot of if-then. It's a lot of preparing for future possibilities for what might happen, being ready for the unexpected, expecting the unexpected. But that is so cliche that you probably expected that. Here we go. So the first one, the one we're going to work with today, is we are going to right-click. You're going to select the text frame that has the variable information in it. You're going to right-click and go down, 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 down to dynamic story properties. If you're saying, hey, I never noticed this before, that would be correct, unless you notice it in one of the computers in our lab at school, because unless you have XMPie or its demo installed, this is not going to be there. This is part of XMPie. Suppress trailing spaces on empty content is a good idea. That means if you had a space, if you had first name, space, last name, but someone's first name wasn't listed, it would just show up as space last name. So I like getting rid of that just in case. We'll go back in here, do it again, right-click, dynamic story properties. And we're going to go down to dynamic story length handling. This is one of the most powerful and simple things here. Do not autoflow. That's the sound of me slapping my own hand for trying to touch the mouse. Don't do it. Copyfit. Click. Copyfit says, make sure my words fit inside that text frame. You have the choice of underflow, overflow, or overflow and underflow. Underflow, like an underbite, makes you look like a French bulldog. I'm doing one right now, but you can't see it because my video's off. Anyways, so underflow means there wasn't enough words to fill the whole frame, so make it bigger till it fits. Overflow is the more common problem and the more useful tool. Overflow says, oh my gosh, how am I going to fit all these words in here? Do something, and it will squish them down, shrink them down, stretch them down. Depending on what you have it do, it'll make sure that it's able to fit. If you have a client who wants something to fit an exact space on the page, you use overflow and underflow. That makes sure that if it's too small, it stretches it. If it's too big, it squishes it, but it's going to fit, darn it. I don't like that. I do overflow. Remember that I'm minimally invasive. I like to do projects and I like to work in methods that are not going to cause unforeseen consequences, which if anybody's old enough and nerdy enough will remember that's the first chapter of the original Half-Life game, Unforeseen Consequences. And the rest of that chapter makes 2020 look pretty tame. The rest of that game makes 2020 look pretty tame, although I wouldn't be surprised if this is going on right now. Anyways, so there are options here. The first one is actual just font size. The second one is the horizontal scale. And the third one is auto leading. So things we already know. Text size says shrink the type until it fits. Now you're telling a computer to do something and it's going to have to do it. This is the same process you would do if you were shrinking till it fit. You say, here's a small I'm willing to let you go. You can choose 50. I think you can do 25. Yeah, you can do 25% as the minimum. But you have to be careful with that because sometimes stuff gets way too small to read. So typically 75% is good enough as the minimum possible size. Maximum size, you can set the step. Just like if you're climbing up a flight of stairs, you can choose how many steps of your walking is it going to take you to go up a step. You have a more accurate, slow, precise walk if you choose 1. 1% means every time you put a foot down, it's on a new stair. 2% means you're skipping some stairs. 5% means you are running up that staircase. The 0.5% means you put both feet on your stair before you step to the next one, and so on and so forth. Basically, what increment do you want the computer to try? If I have this set up as 12-point type and it doesn't fit. Do I want it to skip down to, do I want it to try 11 point, or do I want it to try like 11.75 point? You know, how small of an incremental change are you making, or how aggressive, if you do a bigger percent, how big do you want to make those jumps in between its attempts? Smaller attempts are going to be more accurate because it's trying it and just slightly adjusting it until it fits. But that means it has to attempt that for every single record until it fits. The bigger ones take less time and less memory to do, computer memory speaking, but do it much more bluntly, and you end up with less elegant of a solution in the end. 1%, honestly, default is pretty good. And you say, okay. Oh, I still left enough space in here. So let's do that again. I'll make it a little smaller. I don't like hyphenation. Let's go back down. There you go. Much better. By the way, I'm okay with hyphenated last names. I'm talking about in typography, you should not hyphenate, especially not in an address, because that will get your stuff rejected by the post office. Do not hyphenate an address. Never, ever, ever. Only if someone's name is hyphenated, you may leave that in, but never break lines. You can also, just like the normal thing up here, if you get in here, by the way, if I double click in there to make a change, you'll notice I get a warning from XMPie here that says copyfitting is applied. If I say okay, it will temporarily disable that so I can make adjustments, but it'll go back. So let's see, just so you see what this does. If I say okay, it goes back to being too big with the hyphenation and the problems. So actually, let's see what this does. This is useful for us. Standard paragraph formatting controls. If you click the pill crow up on the top bar there, go over to the side here and uncheck hyphenate. Oh, I guess I have to be in there. Uncheck hyphenate. And then it makes sure that no words get cut in half. And that will also make sure that when you shrink these things, it doesn't still shrink them a little bit and still hyphenate. Again, if you hyphenate an address that's going on a bulk mailer, you are going to ruin the job and cost a company thousands of dollars by leaving hyphenation on. I am not kidding you. Please take this seriously and turn off hyphenation. All right, so if I scroll around and go scroll back to it, you'll notice scroll. If I cycle, sorry, scrolling is the wrong word. If I cycle through the records and cycle back, it will redo the formatting. Another useful tool for this is you can actually find out if you're going to have problems. Let's go back to 1 for a moment. When it's James but, both James and but are pretty short words and they're not going to cause you a huge problem. But there is the possibility of a longer word that's going to be an issue. So how do we know if the last name is going to be worse? Let me show you this. This is cool. Click on the last name, right click, and go down, go to shortest, go to longest. I love these features. Go to the longest last name. Steffensmeyer is the longest name. That's a strange way to spell Tiffany, but who am I to judge? Anyways, Steffensmeyer. That's the longest last name. You can now see if that fits. Let's go check company. That's one we'll likely have a problem. Go to longest company name. And you'll notice this is on more than one layer. Ooh, more than one level. And that's an issue. You don't want to have that. It's tacky and it could cause you problems at the post office. So let's shrink this up a little bit more. And then we'll cycle up and back to it. Wow. You may sometimes just, you have to. You're going to have to pull that out a little bit to make sure that it never does that. Anyways, so these are the basic things for this. For our project with this one, I'm going to want you guys to use the data combined list that you made, and you're going to link it up, and you're going to make an address box on a sheet. It can be a 5x7. And we're going to take a screenshot. Hopefully you get to see me doing this, of both your screen showing, both the document and the XMPie menu there showing which record you're on and doing this. And you can choose like 5 or 6 records at random to show that they're different. I could check to make sure that you're getting it right, because honestly, don't worry so much about your grade on this as much as worry about learning it. So I'm trying to I had to figure out a way without being able to output the files that you can show me what you're working on so I can understand what you're doing and if you need correction to make sure that you're going to get it right. Because I want you guys to get this. This is a cool system, and the system leads to some good jobs. Anyways, so we're going to do that. I will write up the assignment for you. Take a look at your assignments in the Canvas page, which you're probably already seeing. Anyways, this has been signing off. Thanks so much for watching. This has been basic data integration into InDesign using XMPie.